In this particular unit, and the exam is going to remind you, do not round ever. Do not round. The exam is going to remind you of this, okay? Every unit is sectioned off on the exam. So when you go through the exam, it's going to be vehicle finance, and then all the questions are going to be vehicle finance. And then it's going to be probability. Everything is probability. You don't have to guess. When you get the precision measurement, it's going to say do not round, okay? So let's start with some terms. So you need to be comfortable with the terms, and then everything else goes from there. Accuracy. What is accuracy? Have this on your study sheet, okay? Accuracy refers to how close a measurement is to its target value. What in the world are you talking about, Mr. Dixon? So if I gave you, I'm going to try this. If I gave you this die, right, and I try to measure it, we know technically there's a specific target, like this measures maybe 6 millimeters, probably more. But if I try to measure it, the accuracy of my measurement is what we define as how close you are to the actual target value, how close I am. And different measuring devices are more accurate and some are less accurate. For example, the caliper is gone. Okay, I need to bring that back. I'll bring that back. But I'll talk more about that as we go along. Let's keep going. To be accurate, a measured value must be as close to the real value as possible. So I will highlight basically this whole thing. If you claim to have measured something accurately, someone should be able to repeat the process and get the same value. And to make both of these things happen, we need to have a standard unit and use an appropriate scale. Okay? So for you to be able to repeat it and get the same value, we must abide by these rules. So here's some examples. Standard units is any unit that can be recognized worldwide. If I say a milliliter, everybody knows what a milliliter is. If I say a teaspoon in my recipe, everybody knows what a teaspoon is. So all of these would be considered standard units. Non-standard units are anything that isn't standard. Handspan. Handspan. My handspan would be very different than your handspan. I can guarantee you that. Right? Mine is probably like ridiculously big. And right, and so if I say, oh, this table measures 4.5 handspans, and then you come and measure it, it's like, wait a minute, for me it's like 6 1/4. We're not going to be able to get the same measurement, so it's not a standard unit. It wouldn't be accurate, okay? Additionally, accuracy can also be affected. So obviously these two things, if you mess with these, you're going to affect your accuracy. But on top of that, it's improper or careless use of the measuring device is also something that's going to affect it. Or a damaged or faulty measuring device. So if they ever ask you, someone measured the length of a room and got the wrong measurement, why would that be? There are 4 potential issues. Maybe that person did not use a standard measurement, a standard unit, didn't use an appropriate scale, didn't use it properly to begin with, or it may have been damaged. Okay? These 4 are part of affecting your accuracy. So for example, if I measure this piece of paper and I do this, watch, right? Obviously we're not going to get the right measurement, right? If I don't measure like on a straight line, if I measure in an angle, it's also not going to be the accurate measurement, right? It's not going to be close to the target. We know that this is supposed to be 8.5 inches. A piece of paper is 8.5 side to side, right? So that's that. So if you want to add to your study sheet, I'm going to highlight this as well. And I will on the side, on the margins, just say these ones affect accuracy. If you mess with any of these four, you're not going to get an accurate measurement. And the province is very creative at creating a scenario where you're going to have to talk about one of these, okay? So one that I remember is a measuring cup. Someone is baking something and they wanted to take a cup of flour, but they ended up with less than a cup in their bowl that they're mixing everything in. Why is that? Well, maybe the cup that was used was wet inside. Just make stuff up. It was wet inside, and when you put it down on in your bowl, some of it got stuck on the edges. That's why you have less in there than what you scooped up, right? So that would be an improper use of your device. Another examples here, this would be proper use, right? You level, like if you do a cup, you level it off. If you don't level it off, it would be considered inappropriate, okay? Ruler, this one would be a standard unit, and it's nothing wrong with it. This one I tried to show you that it's bent. You leave it outside in the sun, or it got wet and now it's like a wooden ruler and it dries and it's all warped, would also be a problem. So these are some examples of faulty equipment or inappropriate usage. Keep going. I'm only going to do a couple here. I'm not going to do all of them, but I'm giving you some scenarios here. State whether or not each scenario would result in an accurate measurement. Explain by making reference to the unit and the scale. Unit and scale, okay? So inappropriate usage or faulty equipment is not one of them, okay? So remember, accuracy, maybe write this down. This would be a good accuracy. You need a standard unit. You need a appropriate scale. Proper use. How should I do this? Proper use. Proper use, proper equipment. How's that? And remember, accuracy is how close to actual target. Think of it, there's bullseye. That's like I'm getting the exact measurement that I'm supposed to get. And if you're not bullseye, then you're off. You're not accurate, right? You want to hit the bullseye, okay? So using centimeters to measure someone's height. Unit is standard. We're using centimeters. I'm going to put that in brackets. So check. Scale? What do you think? Is centimeters a good scale? Is that a good unit to measure someone's height? Would kilometers be a good one? See what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Scale, I'm just going to go check. So therefore, in math, 3 dots like this in a triangle is therefore accurate. We're not talking about proper use or proper equipment. That's not what's debated right now. It's just like if you just look at the unit and the scale, would this be accurate? The answer is yes. If someone has these two and still can't repeat the process and get the same measurement, that person is not using it properly, or is the equipment is faulty. Okay? Keep going. What about this one? Your forearm to measure the length of a picnic table. Unit, right? It's not standard. Not standard. Scale, what would you say the scale? Forearm to do a picnic table? It's actually not ridiculous, right? The scale is not bad. So scale is actually okay. It's within reason, but it's still not accurate. You need to have 2 check marks for you to be able to say something is accurate. Okay? So knowing what I just did, applying what I just did, can you try all the questions in 3 and 4 real quick, and then I'll go over them, and then we'll move on to precision and uncertainty. But this is, I just give you more examples than just 2 or 3 because I wanted you to have a chance to practice. A meter stick to calculate the distance between 2 cities. A meter stick is standard, so that's fine, right? Distance between 2 cities, I would say the scale is not appropriate. If you differ, if you're arguing, it's like, no, you could do thousands of meters. I would honor that if you did that, like just explain. But I would say scale, not appropriate. I would say use kilometers or miles. Okay, that would be a better scale. Probably not the best example. It should be very obvious. Like we'll be given obvious examples so you don't have to guess. But then again, if you explain it properly, you get the marks if it's not a true, like right or wrong question, if it's just like explain yourself. A ruler marked in millimeters to measure the width of a textbook. This would be standard. Millimeters are definitely standard. Width of a textbook, the scale is also okay. Okay, therefore accurate. Okay, I forgot to mention the one before. The way I answered, I would say therefore not accurate or inaccurate. Your stride, your step to mark off the volleyball court, not a standard unit. Okay, therefore not accurate. You could just stop there. Not a standard unit has been used, therefore it's not accurate. The scale is actually all right to use your foot. We're good? Okay. A tablespoon to measure the amount of sugar a cake requires. That would actually be okay. Okay. Standard unit, and scale is also okay. Therefore accurate. Let's do the next one here. This one is probably a little trickier. Mary used a measuring tape to determine the width of a wood piece. It was supposed to be 4 inches wide, yet she recorded 3 7/8 of an inch. Why might this be? Explain using your knowledge of accuracy. So you have to now check. The scale is okay. Using inches for a piece of wood is fine. Using a standard unit is fine. So what does it have to be then? It has to be proper use or proper equipment. It has to be one of these. That is the problem right now. So you make up a story. I know it's like, what? You want, I want like, just show me a formula, Mr. Dirksen. I can't. Okay? So you can say, her tape measure may have been damaged some marks were rubbed off, some markings were missing. I don't know if you've ever used a measuring tape, but if you use it long enough, these markings, they sometimes come off, right? So it could have been something like that, that the markings were off. So be specific. She did not, let's talk about the operation. She did not make sure to measure the piece in a straight line. And you know what? I love diagrams to make my case. So if this is the piece of wood, right? She may have gone from here in an angle like this, okay? Measured this way instead of going straight across. So this is my example. That's why you're off. All right, you could probably argue, no, Mr. Erickson, if she did that, it would have been longer, wouldn't it? Longer than 3 7/8? Actually, you got a point. That's what I get for making stuff up. So maybe, what should I do here to fix my mistake? Maybe it's better to say she didn't make sure that the end was properly over the edge. That's what I'm going to say. The end of the tape was not properly over the edge. Mr. Dirksen, your mistakes are driving me over the edge. That's what's happening right now. Sorry about that. I'm going to stop.